Welcome students to today's session. We shall study in detail about the nerve cell. We are familiar with the nerve cell from class 8. We have drawn the structure of the nerve cell and always studied it as it is closely associated with its function. It looks like wires and cables, and it is involved in transmission of messages from the brain to different parts of the body and also collection of information from different parts of the body to the brain. We shall study in today's session a detailed structural analysis and functional analysis of the neuron or the nerve cell. Neuron is the structural and functional unit of the nervous system. It has a cell body called the cyton, and it contains the nucleus and the cytoplasm. It has several branched structures called dendrites. It has a long nerve fiber called axon, which is covered by a protective covering called a myelin sheath. The junction between two neurons is called as a synapse. Messages pass through the nerve cell in the form of chemical and electrical signals called nerve impulse. The dendrites receive the information and starts a chemical reaction which produce electrical impulse which pass through the axon. Let us now look how this transmission of message passes through the neurons. The information acquired at the dendrite tip of the nerve cell sets off a chemical reaction that creates a nerve impulse. This impulse travels from the dendrite to the cell body and along the axon. At the end of the axon, that is at the nerve endings, the electrical impulse sets off the release of some chemicals. It is these chemicals which cross the junction between the nerve endings and the dendrite of the next neuron. These junctions where the electrical impulse is converted into chemical signals are called as synapse. These chemicals go across the junction in the synapse and again get converted into electrical impulse in the dendrite of the next neuron, and then it further travels through the axon of the next neuron as an electrical impulse, and the process is repeated. So this is a very fast movement and it just moves on like electrical signals. So this is the way messages are transmitted through neurons. There, there would be a video to support this activity which you can see through. Let us go into the next topic, which is called as reflex action. Reflex action is a sudden, unconscious and involuntary response of the effectors to the stimulus. Let us look into some of the examples. We suddenly withdraw our hand when we touch something hot. In this reflex action, the nerves in the skin, which are the receptors, detect the heat and pass the message through the sensory neurons to the spinal cord. Then the information is passed through the motor neurons to the muscle, which is the effector of the hand, and we withdraw our hand. In brief, there is not enough time for the message to travel to the brain, and in the place of the brain, spinal cord gives the command for the activity to take place, and it is called as reflex action. So when the hand comes on top of a hot object, you touch something or hot, the sensory neurons pass the message to spinal cord. The spinal cord sends back the information through motor neurons to the muscles, and the hand is pulled back. This happens in a fraction of a second. That is the speed of the traveling of nerve impulse to the different receptors and effectors. Let us look into some more examples. Knee jerk action. When your knee or your the foot hits any obstacle, it could be a stone, it could be a furniture, it could be a door, you immediately pull your leg back. Now this is also an involuntary action. The sensory neurons pass on the message to the spinal cord, and the spinal cord sends in information to the muscles of the leg to pull the leg back. So this is another example of reflex action. Such reflex action also happens when you blink your eyes when light suddenly falls onto your eyes. Now, the pathway of the reflex action is called as a reflex arc. In a reflex arc, the stimulus is received by the receptor organ, which could be a sense organ, and it passes through the sensory nerves to the spinal cord. The spinal cord reacts by passing on message to motor nerves, which will go to the effector organs, muscles or glands, and which will create the response immediately. This pathway of the reflex action is called as the reflex arc. So with this, today's session ends. Thank you.